I mentioned recently that I had become credit card debt free, and I had a few people ask me how I did that. So, for kind of overall context, something like 63% of all American households carry credit card debt, and the average credit card debt used to be 7K and now it's like 15K. So, having credit card debt is very kind of normal. It's not a good thing, but it's very normal. And I say that to say that becoming credit card debt free, you're in the minority if you have no credit card debt. So that is certainly my desired position, and I hope that it's your desired position as well. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I achieved my credit card debt freedom. And the reason why I say that is because if you ask me right now, mathematically, how to lay it out, I couldn't do that for you, because in my journey, at least, things very rarely follow a linear path. It's not like I do one thing and then I get a result. It's either much less or much greater than I expect. And I feel like that's kind of the overall theme in my journey, is that it's about 80% numbers and then 20% hand of God, act of faith, cataclysmic events. So this is my history and my story with credit card debt and how I was able to become credit card debt free for the second time. So for background, I was in credit card debt when I graduated college, and I thought, what a silly thing to have happen. I remember here, I got my first credit card in college, and I remember hearing a girl on my dorm say that she had $2,000 worth of credit card debt. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. Like, how could you get that much? Fast forward to 2 years after college, and I had something like $7,000 in credit card debt. And that was just, I had no idea how it happened. And how it happened was in little tiny increments. And just without noticing, it's an extra dinner here, it's an extra pair of shoes here, it's buying a gift for a friend here. And those little things added up. And so before I knew it, I had $17,000 in consumer loan debt. That included a car note and credit card debt. I was able to pay that off once I had my rock bottom moment, because up till that point, I hadn't been paying attention to my finances at all. I had just been spending, and I knew I had bills, and just somehow it worked out. So it didn't work out, because that's how I was able to accrue that credit card balance, just by not paying attention, is why that happened. So once I had my rock bottom moment and I committed to paying attention, I also committed to not going $1 further into credit card debt and making a plan to pay off my credit card debt. And I was able to do that within about 2.5 years, making roughly $30,000. So that's $17,000. That's a combined credit card debt and car note. Again, I was able to pay that off in 2 years, making roughly $30,000 a year. So fast forward to almost 15 years later, and this was the year 2022. And so prior to that, so from the point I paid off my credit card debt from undergrad in college to the time that I got married in February of 2022, I had no credit card debt. I had not gone back into credit card debt. So the reason I was in debt for the second time was due to a wedding. Now, could I have avoided that looking back on it? And the answer is probably not. I mean, could we have done something different? Absolutely. Could we have had a bare bones wedding just kind of at the registry office? Absolutely, we could have done that. But my husband and I kind of together both came to the agreement that this was a life event that we wanted to celebrate. It was a first marriage for both of us, and neither of us had any kids. So we really wanted to mark this occasion for both of us. We ended up getting married in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and had our families down there. And that's the reason for, I would say, half of that was paying room and board and travel for our families. Again, would 1000% do it over again, was worth every single penny. There's some things that I would obviously do different, but I don't regret that at all, because by the grace of God, that is ideally a once in a lifetime event. And I feel like we marked it in a fitting way. Would it have been great to have some money saved aside for that? Absolutely. Where I was coming from, I guess where both of us were, we hadn't set aside anything for that. So do I wish I'd done something different as far as saving for that? Sure. Did I do the absolute best I could in the moment? Absolutely. So regarding my most recent credit card debt in 2022, after coming off of our wedding. So here's the story. I had $12,000 in credit card debt. So I went from $0 to $12,000 within the space of a month. So in January of 2022, and this included the hotel, flights, everything for the wedding, So my husband paid for the reception. I paid, and the hotel, renting the hotel, I paid for everything else. So the vendors, the hair, the makeup, my family's travel, and my room and board prior to us being married, I covered that. So I had $12,000 all in, and that was in January of 2022. So making a plan to pay that off, and I had no kind of, I don't want to say way forward with that, but I was in the position then after that, because my medical costs jumped from about $400 a month to roughly $1,400 a month, because very soon after that, I found out that I was pregnant, and I carried the medical costs for our family, the health insurance for our family. So that immediately ate into my disposable income. So, or the income that I brought home. So my net income became less almost immediately. So it was a very frustrating position to be in, because I had just about enough, my fixed costs, just about enough to cover my fixed costs hitting my bank account every month. And it was frustrating because I still had to buy groceries, transportation, et cetera, anything else that needed to be covered out of my check, I still had to buy. So I was at, I would say, 85% on fixed costs. And then I still had to buy additional variable items, which it was very challenging to get down to that manageable amount. So for me during that time, the victory was not adding to my credit card debt. So that, I would say, from February of 2022 to December of 2022, so going into 2023, was very challenging. So in essence, the story is I didn't go any further. So that number, that $12,000 number, just went down. And that was, again, through paying attention by very, very clear awareness of how much was coming in and how much was going out, even though they weren't numbers that made any sense, because on paper, I was going further in the hole every month. I was able to, again, through very close management, keep that number where it was. And then this is the story is that through a series of very small windfalls, I was able to make some progress. So it wasn't, again, anything I could have planned and set out a detailed kind of schedule of how I could do it. It was unexpected windfalls. So in 2022, I got a small windfall from a tax return because we filed separately in 2022. Our tax returns were separate because we were not married in tax year 2021. So I got a small refund for that, and I put that immediately toward credit card debt. Then further on in 2022, I got what I thought was an additional sort of surplus from my maternity leave that I was able to apply to the credit card debt. Fast forward, series of mistakes were made, and I ended up having to pay back that amount at 0% interest. Thank the good Lord, still needed to be paid back. Very frustrating situation. That's the second thing. And then just recently in September of 2023, we got another very small windfall. So by this time, my account or my credit card debt had gone from $12,000 to $10,000 to $8,000, then down to $6,000. And the way, again, it was just incremental. Every month I would chip away maybe $50, maybe $100, and then I would get windfalls that I would chuck at the debt. Then in September, we sat down together with this most recent windfall and said, hey, let's pay off my credit card debt. And that is what we did. So I couldn't say, I made this much, I was making this much additional, or I side hustled really hard and I got rid of it. I was prepared to do that. But I think together as a unit, my husband and I decided that it was more valuable for me to stay home than to bust myself side hustling to do that. And I feel very fortunate and very lucky to be in that position. But that's essentially what happened, was A, close management to not go further into debt, and then B, being very intentional with any additional money going directly towards the debt. And part of me feels like it doesn't really count because I had this additional income or these additional windfall items that helped me pay down my credit card debt. And I can think of two other YouTubers that have had similar events. One sold a house and the other one had sort of an inheritance that allowed them to pay off significant portions of debt. And I think about that two ways. Number one, it's like, oh, it's very easy to discount someone's story because they had external help. And I think on the one hand, oh, well, yeah, you have this external help. But on the other hand, how many people have ruined themselves with external help? And just because you have that little bit of a boost does not negate all of the hard work you did before. So if I run the numbers, I would say that I was able to pay off roughly 70% of the debt on myself with my own kind of, I don't say ingenuity, but management of my own spending. And then 30% was due to a windfall. So that's essentially how I did it, just by being very, very aware of what was coming out and what was going in, even though the numbers didn't look good at first. So if I were to tell myself in January of 2022 that in September of 2023, I'd be sitting here credit card debt free, I think I would say I can see that happening, and I just hold on and hold on through it. Keep managing my monthly, my daily, my weekly, my monthly numbers as closely as I possibly can, and keep my eyes open for the miracle, because that's essentially how my story has worked. I have been able to explain or account for almost none of this, but I know that being aware and being very intentional about what's coming in and what's going out, even when the numbers don't look good, has been the way that I've been able to achieve most of what I've achieved. So that's where I am right now. That's the story of how I got out of credit card debt. Most recently, how I'm credit card debt free. So there you go. There it is. So thanks for watching, and I hope you'll keep watching. Bye.